How's everybody doing? I think you know, and welcome back to the channel where you might notice things are a little bit different. Like, for instance, you were seeing my face for the first time, unless you follow me on Twitch where you may have seen it before, but you'll also notice this is not a Cities Skylines video, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that throughout the video and talk about the future of the channel in general. But for right now, we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of playing City Skylines, we're going to be actually taking a look at some actual cities in the USA where I live. I'm based out of New York, and this is a new Sporkle quiz entitled, Can You Name the 300 Largest US Cities by the 2020 Census? The 2020 census results were just released a few months ago. And I'll also show you that I have not yet played this quiz. I've had this bookmark for quite a while. I had really been wanting to do some more Cities Skylines content, but I'm getting bogged down in a new concept and a new idea, which again, we'll talk about in a minute. But first we're gonna jump into here and play this 20-minute quiz trying to name 300 US cities. Now, these 300 cities are not metropolitan areas. These are the cities proper themselves. And I think the method we're going to use here is we're going to try to name some of the top 10 or 20, the big cities first, and then we're going to go state by state, trying to knock off as many as I can. I've been a big Sporkle fan for quite some time. I must have gotten into this 15 years ago in college. So I've been loved doing these quizzes for a very long time. And if you can, I will post this quiz down in the comments below in the description, so you can go and give it a try yourself. This quiz is not verified, but you know, I trust it well enough that somebody took the census results and popped it into a Sporkle quiz. And I don't know, let's start doing it. First, obviously, the biggest city in America is New York City. And one of my favorite bits about New York being the number one is that if you look at the second set of numbers, so the first set of numbers here is how many people now live in the city, and the plus or minus sign next to it is how many people has grown or has shrunk since the 2010 census. And despite all the naysayers saying, oh, COVID's ruining New York is dead, that's a bunch of crap. New York's killing it. We have the largest population growth of any city in the country over the last 10 years. Second is, of course, Los Angeles. You have Chicago third and Houston fourth. Phoenix fifth, which is not only the largest city in the Southwest, but the largest state capital. Following that up, you have Philadelphia, which always kind of surprises me that it is so high up on the list for a city that really is turning itself around and really is trying to grow a lot more recently. But below that, we start getting all the Texas cities. The amount of population growth that's happening in Texas right now is just wild. I mean, there's been a lot of stories about it, and you know, you can go read those in the Times or whatever. But all you have to know is that they're growing so fast, I can't even know which one is first because they're constantly leapfrogging each other. And whether it's Austin or Fort Worth or Dallas, or I think the one they're looking for here next is actually San Antonio. And it's just really hard to pick one because they're all growing at such a rapid rate. They're all constantly leapfrogging each other. The second largest city in California, I believe, is going to be not San Jose, so maybe it's San Diego. There we go. But it's nice to see a lot of US cities now topping over 1 million people. I always find it wild when you look at a country like China where it has dozens upon dozens of cities that have over 1 million in population. Now, America has a lot of cities with a metropolitan area over a million people, but that's because of suburban sprawl of white flight from decades ago, and the cities proper are often cratered in populations, and they've really lost that tax base, and is a big reason why so many American cities struggle to, you know, really recapture the growth that they might have had during the more industrial age prior to the end of the Second World War. I think that's enough for like the top 10 cities, or kind of lost count there. There's no counter on this Sporkle quiz, but let's start going state by state. So if you sing the song in your head, the first state alphabetically is Alabama. which I pretty much only Montgomery is definitely one. Uh, Birmingham, it's Birmingham, not Birmingham like in the UK. And look at that, they're actually right next to each other, remarkably close in size. And then I don't know, Alabama is not a state that I'm crazy familiar with, and I feel like I get some of its coastal towns mixed up with Mississippi. Sorry for any Mississippians or Alabamians in the audience today. I actually have been to Mississippi once. I had a really nice time, visited Jackson, and liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. But Alabama is not a state that I've been to. And I know there's some, and maybe it's Mobile in Alabama, or Mobile rather. Yep, that is in Alabama. And then I want to say Biloxi, but maybe that's in Mississippi. And maybe that's not even one of the top 300 cities in America. My goal today really is I'd love to get over 150. If you look at this quiz, if you take this quiz yourself, you realize that a huge percentage of the cities are in the largest states, which, I mean, of course, that makes sense. But California has so many cities that have like 100,000 people, 150,000 people in it that you might have never heard of it all, or you might only be vaguely familiar with, but then realize, oh wow, that has 100,000 people in it. And yeah, it does. And that's the only way you get a state with 30 some odd million people living in it. The next state on the list is Alaska, which I believe only has one city on the list, which will be Anchorage. Anchorage, ooh, all the way down here. There it is. Actually, pretty high on the list. It's definitely the biggest metropolitan area in Alaska. I'll, put in some of the others just to check, but I don't believe that any of the others will end up on that list. Arizona is next. Now, Arizona is one of the fastest growing states in the U.S. Mainly for retirees looking for somewhere warm to go. That's not Florida, and I mean, who can blame them? Sorry, Florida. We've already guessed Phoenix, but there is Mesa and Glendale and Tucson and probably a lot of others that I'm not thinking of quite this moment. It's going to have to come to me. Although Scottsdale, think what else is in Arizona? I can always come back, of course. We don't have to get everything immediately for every state, but I don't want to get the big ones out of the way, and then inevitably you go back and look at this and you miss something super obvious that you forgot about, and it just happens. There's really nothing you can do about that. So Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas is next. So from Arkansas, you have the capital of Little Rock. And then the other city that I'm familiar with there is Bentonville, which not on the list, surprisingly. Bentonville is where Walmart is based, and for all the business and growth there, it certainly has become quite a bit of a larger city. So Alabama, Arkansas, I believe California is next on that list alphabetically. So let's dive into California. There's so much to do here. So we've already guessed a few of the largest cities. We did San Jose, we did San Diego, we did LA. Let's do Southern California as well. So places like, where the big university is in Irvine. You have all the cities outside of Los Angeles, which are not in Los Angeles proper, like Pasadena, like Long Beach. I believe, and I'm going to definitely guess a lot of things here that are not right, and you're going to yell at me in the comments, and that's fine. I can handle it. I'm not claiming to be any expert in all these cities. I'm never going to get close to 300 on this, but the goal is to get as high as you can, get as close as you can. Name some of the big cities. Now we're back up north. We just did San Francisco and Oakland. Let's do Walnut Creek, which is right around there. Not on the list. Not big enough. A big suburb of Oakland, though. I believe Santa Clara should be on the list, where that absolutely horrendous new 49er stadium is. Just was talking to my brother about this, who's a 49ers fan, the other night, and it is absolutely a white elephant. And time is ticking away. I am talking too much. So we're just going to keep going rapid fire here as soon as we can. So I'm going to start just going down the list and trying to fill in things that make sense. So I'm looking here at DC. That's Washington, of course. Now, Washington State itself, we have Seattle. We got Salem, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, which probably fills in Portland, Maine as well. Let's see, down in Florida, largest in Florida. It's not Miami, you might think it is, but actually I believe it's Orlando. Nope, but that's on the list somewhere. We got Tampa. You can do Clearwater, which is also part of the Tampa area. There's Naples in Florida, and that's not on the list. So the big one must be Jacksonville. Ooh, that's not how you spell it. There it is. Now we're into Ohio. The biggest city in Ohio actually now is Columbus. It's no longer the other C's of Cleveland or Cincinnati. Sorry, two N's, one T in Cincinnati. But Columbus, Ohio, plus 116,000 people in the last decade. Not only is it the capital there, but it is certainly the fastest growing city and, you know, taking population away from those larger, more post-industrial cities that people might be more familiar with. Indianapolis is certainly on the list. Indianapolis, can't spell today. In North Carolina, another really quickly growing state. You have Charlotte, you have Raleigh, you have Durham, you have Winston-Salem, you have Asheville. Not on the list, but I bet you it's closing in on it. I know that is close to eclipsing the 100,000 mark. Uh, the next highest on the list is Colorado, which has to be Denver. We can also fill in Colorado Springs and there's also Aurora, which is a suburb, but really a city in its own right outside. And I put in Fort Wayne, but I was actually thinking about Fort Collins, which is a large city in, I believe that's like northwestern uh, Colorado. There's Boulder, of course. Next up is Tennessee. So we have Memphis and Nashville. Oklahoma, of course, its largest city is Oklahoma City. And in Texas now, Texas again is going to come up over and over and over again. We already guessed all the big ones in the main triangle as well as San Antonio, but I believe this one's going to be El Paso. Next up is Boston. Boston's always wild to me that it's like one of the original cities of the country and one of the biggest, and it's just so far down the list at this point. Part of that is that Boston is really fractured and has suburbs, and the metropolitan area is much bigger than that. But sorry, Boston, you think you're a big city, you don't really quite make the list. But that's just my New York bias coming out. In Michigan, you have Detroit, of course. Detroit continues to lose population despite its, always being spoken of as having a renaissance. And it is. I mean, it's doing great. It's doing a lot better than it used to. The Lions still suck, though. The Tigers still suck. So, maybe you can fix that. Maybe people will want to enjoy your city a little bit more. In Kentucky, I think that's going to be Louisville. In Maryland, we have Baltimore, another former big city that continues to lose population. Milwaukee. And now New Mexico, we have Santa Fe. Did I already put that in, maybe? Or is it just looking for Albuquerque? There it is. And then back to California. So there's a bunch of smaller to medium-sized cities, a lot of the Inland Empire, and again, the cities that kind of surround the bigger cities. So let's type in Fresno and Stockton and maybe not Redding, but Bakersfield. As I keep thinking of more Californias, I'm just going to keep sticking them in. But for Missouri, we have St. Louis, but actually the largest city is Kansas City, Missouri. In Georgia, we have Atlanta. Atlanta is another city where like it's not even 500,000, and you think of Atlanta as being a really, really big city, but it's really a big population center with a lot of people that escape to the suburbs for, reasons that they'll never really tell you the truth about. But we all know why. You have Omaha, Nebraska. The only other city in Nebraska you really got to think about is Lincoln. Now, Virginia, Virginia, I've just put in Richmond, but Virginia is really growing in a couple of areas. In the Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake area, and then in the northern area of Virginia, which is essentially the DC suburbs. Now, DC has these ridiculous rules where they don't put in large cities there. I'm sorry, DC, they don't put in large buildings, and that means that all the people who want to live there end up going to Northern Virginia or Maryland as well. All right. Minnesota is, of course, Minneapolis and St. Paul, but there's also a Rochester, which will fill in Rochester, New York as well. And Duluth is not on the list. Other cities in New York, since we're talking about Rochester. So Yonkers, Buffalo, Syracuse, well, Rochester we already got. Um, I think those might be the biggest ones. I think Albany is not on the list. White Plains is too small. It's growing, but probably still too small. I don't think Mount Vernon will make the list. So that might be it for New York, but we'll take a look if we have enough time. We're already about 5 minutes left, and I did want to get to 150 here, so let's keep plugging away at this. Let's think about Kansas. So you got Wichita, so you have New Orleans and Baton Rouge, two biggest cities in Louisiana. For Hawaii, you have Honolulu, New Jersey. So we have Trenton, not on the list really. So it's Newark, Elizabeth, maybe Edison, no, but Jersey City certainly. Patterson, New Jersey, always bigger than you think it is. All right, let's keep going here, man. I'm wondering now, we'll even get to 150, or definitely we'll get to 100 for sure. But um, I'm just kind of thinking now, little cities that I know in some of the states that are kind of popping up on my radar here. Um, Vancouver, not Canada. There's a Vancouver in Washington State as well. And I'm just gonna start plugging in as much as I can. And while I do that, I'm also going to be talking a little bit about what's going on with the channel. So as you might have realized, the last time that I released a video now was about 3 months ago at the end of August, right before I went on a vacation. And I figured I would just come back and start working on more videos for the East Yorkshire Cities Skylines video. And unfortunately, that save file is dead. You've probably already known that if you did take a look at my Twitter, which is at I think you know, if you're not following me already. And it's really just a shame because I really loved working on that city and I was really excited about where it was going. I tried using a movable bridge mod and it just totally ruined my save. And because I was in the middle of a double episode, I never really had done enough extra saves um, to get back and fix what was done. So unfortunately, that is going to be done. We're not going to go back into that file, but what I wanted to really do next was do another City Skyline series, but it's so limiting creatively to do that for me, and I think a lot of other creators are seeing that happen to them as well. And I wanted to do something a little bit different. So, as I've been promising for a long time, I will be doing something New York related, but it will not be your standard time lapse live play edited together footage. I want to do something that really can serve a broader audience, and that's going to essentially be New York based, but really talking about the history of New York while also using City Skylines to tell some of that story. So I'm not ditching the City Skylines entirely. I still love playing the game. I think I'm going to start streaming some of the New York build on Twitch, since those are long builds and they don't really work well for individual videos, but I still want to find ways to, really expand on the concept and give everybody a better view of what's happening. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm still in the planning stages. I have some of the work done. I'm script writing. I'm learning some new editing techniques. I'm hoping by the end of the year that I can get that first video out, but I'd really like to get a few in the can so that we don't have any more large gaps. But to fill some of the gaps, I'm going to be doing stuff like this. So I'm going to be doing some Sporkle. I have some other city guessing games lined up, maybe some GeoGuessr. If there's anything else you want to see me do, where's my camera? Stick it down in the comments. And I'll be happy to really take a look at just about anything, because this is still a pretty new channel with not a lot of people seeing it yet, and I want to just keep continuing to do some really great growth, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with all of you, and moving into a new era and just trying to try something new. It never hurts to try something new, especially when your channel is still really kind of starting out in a lot of ways. And I'm hoping you can all come along for the ride. And now back into this because we have just about a minute left. I'm definitely not going to get to the 150 that I wanted, but pretty happy with the way things are going. Still need to bang out a few of these larger cities though. So I'm really just thinking like Texas and California because they're the ones that they got those bigger cities that you're familiar with that you can really crank out if you're smart about it. Something like Plano, Texas, where is again one of the other little minor suburbs around the Dallas area. Um, Boise, Idaho is on the list for sure. I want to make sure I try to hit as many states as I can. Anyone who's watching from one of those random states, you deserve your due as well. Let's do Salt Lake City and Provo and Utah. Let's do some more. Nope. Scranton's not on the list. That's crazy. Not Reading, Pennsylvania. We got 5 seconds left. 121's not bad. I might give this another go. I think the next video we'll do a different untimed video that is more about finding large areas. But let's take a look here and see what we missed. So Sacramento, the capital of California, didn't quite come to mind. Tulsa, Anaheim is where Disneyland is. Corpus Christi, Texas again. Henderson, Nevada, Santa Ana, Toledo, Ohio. Very, very shameful personal reasons that one didn't come to mind when I was doing Ohio. Madison, Wisconsin. There's so many big, great cities on this list that had I had more time, had I not been rambling on and talking, I certainly would have gotten to. But you know what? This gives you the challenge. If you can beat 121, screenshot it at me on Twitter, rub it in my face, let me know that you're better than me at this. And I'll try to get better and do more videos like this in the future. But I want to thank you all for sticking around, hopefully, and enjoying this new concept that I'm working on. And I hope you can all stay around for what's coming in the future on this channel. We're going to stick around for a while. We're going to keep doing big things. So hit subscribe and hit like if you haven't, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.